Hello. For once, the Labour Party is lucky. It's not a very lucky party normally, but they're slipping this assisted dying law under the net and under the cover of what's going on in the Middle East. And a lot of bloggers will be concentrating on events 2,000 miles away, while this is going on here at home, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. So I'm going to be talking about the so-called Assisted Dying Act. Well, it's a bill at the moment, but it's going through. And I saw this headline in the Telegraph. I never thought I'd end up on the same side as Diane Abbott, but to my astonishment, she's come out against the assisted dying bill. And if you'd have asked me to predict how Diane Abbott would go, I would say that she'd go along with the socialist idea of getting old people out the way because they're a drain on the community, the parasitism it used to be called, didn't it? But no, she actually has some principles. I am beginning to revise my opinion of the bewigged old soak. OK, the assisted dying bill. And she was arguing, and again, 100%, that proper debate about the ethical and legal concerns have been made impossible, given the speed with which the bill is, well, the indecent haste with which the bill is being pushed through. It was published just 18 days before its second reading. She's quite right, and nothing anyone could say will convince me that this supersonic speed with which the bill is being pushed through has anything to do with the soft-hearted socialist wish to reduce suffering. On the contrary, I believe that the reason for offing a few rather sick people has more to do with the colossal cost of keeping a terminally ill patient alive than it has to do with keeping a terminally ill patient free from pain. OK, I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video. Please share it. This is actually, this assisted dying thing is really awful. Please share the video. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to make a financial contribution, I suppose you might guess my attitude to assisted dying when I tell you that part of my earnings on this channel go to the keeping alive of a lame old rescue horse who is basically a complete waste of space, grass and fresh air. But there you are, I'm doing it anyway. The writer of this article about Diane Abbott's opposition to the assisted dying bill, Stephen Daisley, says Friday's debate only confirmed what a wretched, incurious and insubstantial parliament we have, with few exceptions. One of them is Diane Abbott, the mother of the house. She used her allotted time to make one final plea to her colleagues not to take the NHS into the killing business. It was a speech marked above all by scepticism. Right, well, she wasn't appealing to religion. She was saying that it's not going to work the way they say they think it's going to work. We all probably know someone who doesn't want to make a fuss or be a burden on their loved ones. Within the family, Abbott said, the most powerful coercion is silence. It's the failure to answer when a question is put. How many people will fall silent and go along with what they imagine to be in the best interests of the people around them? What we can take a guess at is the demographic profile of those who'll respond in this way. It will be older women socialised to put their husbands and children first. Women from minority religious and ethnic backgrounds, communities where it's traditional for men to do the talking and the decision making, and for women to be talked to and have final decisions presented to them. Yeah, I should think this will impact the elderly of minority, well, female elderly of minority communities as well. But since it's got into power, this government has indulged in a veritable banquet of death. It cut the heating allowance for old people. Let's see what we've got there. 5,000 excess winter deaths caused by cold homes last winter. That's a start, but it's obviously not nearly enough kills. Only 5,000. Recently, the government decriminalised abortion, at least in part. It's not quite as severe as a lot of people want to put it, but in some situations, it's legalised up to just about term, which some people might refer to as infanticide. But then such people are obviously a bunch of sentimental old reactionaries. And now we have the deliberate de-lifing of people who are supposed to be so very ill they have no more than 6 months left, which is what Diane Abbott was talking about. Of course, it's the doctors who decide on that timeline. It's the doctors who say, this person's got just 6 months. And of course, we all know, don't we, that doctors are infallible and never get things wrong and never tell people that they've got 6 months to live and then 5 years later say, that's nice. So what's the betting that there's going to be a lot of elderly people coerced by impatient heirs? And there'll be a lot of, again, another thing, a lot of heartbroken parents of children with terminal diseases, unviable babies. And they're going to be pressured by hospitals, overburdened enough by their healthy patients, and just looking to release a bed occupied by a terminally ill child. Now, they might not actually say to a grieving parent that their child's life is worth nothing, but it's so easy to give that impression, isn't it? Especially in a hospital. I mean, who actually wants to be a burden? Not the granddad with cancer or the parents with a trisomy 13 baby. Come on, Gramps. Come on, Mum and Dad. Let's get it over with. And this is all the more likely to happen because this bill isn't even getting a proper pre-legislative scrutiny, which is, again, what Diane was saying. It's almost as if this government are desperate to push it through, isn't it? Well, they did promise more hospital beds and doctor's appointments, didn't they? And then there's mission creep. It's not as if we haven't been warned. Canada is ahead of us on this. They have a system called MAID. Doesn't that sound nice? Medical assistance in dying. Does anyone remember that woman in Canada who had to use a wheelchair as a result of injuries she got while serving in the military? Here, I pulled up that story. Canadian Paralympian. She was also, even after she was injured, she became a Paralympian. And she said, I asked for a disability ramp and I was offered euthanasia. So what happened? Served 10 years in the Canadian Armed Forces, represented her country in the 2016 Paralympic Games, was told she had the right to die by a caseworker from Veterans Affairs Canada, which is a government agency. Speaking to the Telegraph, Miss Gauthier, who requires a wheelchair because of irreversible injuries from her time in the military, said after initially submitting her request for the disabled equipment in 2018 and not getting it, in 2022 a VAC employee called me to make a point of where we're at with the lift. She continued, and I said, I just can't keep going like this. I can't keep living like this. Like, this has to be done. This has to be resolved. And the person stated, Madame Gauthier, if you really feel you can't go on like this, if you feel you can't do it anymore, you have the right to die. Can you imagine? a difficult life, made difficult because she couldn't get up the stairs in her house. I suppose what she had to do, because she's in a wheelchair, she probably had to, I've no idea, I'm just guessing, she would have had to get out of the wheelchair and then sort of pull herself up the stairs on her hands. Sitting, push, sit, push, and that sort of thing. And she said, I can't go on like this. And they said, well, how about getting off the bus? And then there's this here. Again, in Canada. I went for a mastectomy and they offered me assisted dying, a Canadian cancer patient reveals. A woman undergoing life-saving cancer surgery in Canada was offered assisted suicide by doctors as she was about to enter the operating room. Do you honestly think it won't happen here? And can you imagine, you're going into an operating room, they're going to give you an anaesthetic that'll put you to sleep. And how do you know that you're ever going to wake up in those sort of circumstances? And a lot of the medical profession isn't all that keen either. Not many doctors are that happy to play God. A lot of doctors are worried that their patients are worried about them in situations like this. But the doctors themselves are going to get pressure from relatives with an agenda. And they're also going to be, as I say, fully aware that some of their patients will cease to trust them. And because of that, may hide things from them, important symptoms, because they'll be terrified that this will leave them vulnerable to suggestions that perhaps they might save everyone a lot of trouble by, just finishing things then and there. That is when they're not looking at their doctors and wondering whether that injection really is just antibiotics. Now, we all make fun of Diane Abbott because she made a horrendous mistake in a BBC interview. The Home Secretary, Shadow Home Secretary at the time, was on Nick Ferrari's programme to explain Labour's plan for extra police officers. But when asked how much it would cost, she replied £300,000, which works out at £30 an officer. In an attempt to rectify the mistake, she went on to correct herself. No, I mean, sorry, it'll cost about 80 million. Ferrari pointed out that this second figure would mean a police officer's annual salary would be £8,000. So we have this here. Right, so everybody made fun of Diane Abbott not knowing what she was talking about. And that's why for those of you who don't know much about Diane Abbott, that's why I find myself so very strangely on her side. But honestly, she may not be able to add up when it comes to policemen's salaries, but she certainly added up correctly here. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.